Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, hello, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN Kerbeck, and our show today has a new title, in case you didn't join us last week for the pilot episode. This is still presenting Pet Psychic Aminah, but Pet Psychic Aminah has expanded in terms of her expertise. She is an expert when it comes to coexistence and sustainability, and that's the new name of our show. So thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about animals with shells. We're going to be talking about shells in general, and we're going to be talking about shells as homes. Let's welcome Pet Psychic Aminah and congratulate her on the new show name.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this absolutely stunning background. You wouldn't know. It's not one of those conversations we bring up. What's your favorite color? Lime green? It is. It's in it that way my whole life. So when you showed me the background, I was like, oh, it's people don't realize we make steps in our life that we don't understand. And they're so organic and they're so perfect for us. So I want to encourage everybody, go with the surprises. They can be the best thing you ever didn't know you wanted. Or you do. I love lime green. I've always, since I was a little bitty kid, lime green, lime green. Where do you use lime green? Not many places. And you found a beautiful mix. Thank you. With a live tree, the whole thing, it's beautiful.
And you know, the building, from what I read about this particular graphic, it's made out of recycled glass.
I remember you said that. I'm so glad you brought it up because we hadn't talked about it since. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It really is. So we just want to celebrate living together as humanity and all the creatures in the world. And what can we do to keep Mother Earth and Father Universe very happy? So let's talk a little bit about your background. People might say, I don't understand. She's a pet psychic, but now she's an expert in these other areas. We don't have to be just one thing. I know I'm not, and I know you're not. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you're passionate about coexistence and sustainability.
It was, before it had that lovely title, it's something I've worked on, and I didn't know. Sometimes we are passionate about something. We like to paint, we like to drive, we like to do sports, we do something. And maybe in that field, you found a niche to give back to others. I have done that. I have always spoken to, heard the animals, nature. Being a fifth child, kind of out on my own at the bottom of the family line, everybody was busy and were athletes. I was the same, but nobody wants to hang around with their youngest sibling. And I really, really bonded with nature. And it was a joy to be out there, even though I was raised in the desert. My parents traveled extensively with us. So I've seen the United States in its entirety, Alaska included, 5 times minimum, and some states many, many more times. It gives me perspective as a child to open my mind to different cultures, different ways of eating, and that's just in the United States. I have also traveled extensively in Europe and the Middle East. I spent a summer in the Middle East. Not really common vacation places, but I had family and or friends and interest there. Every time I'm going there, I'm getting to know the animals. I'm getting to know the people. I'm getting to know the way life is lived in those cultures and respecting those times. My time in Saudi Arabia was wonderful, very different. my time in Iran, very different from California or from Colorado or New York City. I have been very, very fortunate to meet those animals, meet their people, and what animals are struggling with in those areas. And if you know something that's going on in your state, your country, please let me know, because I'd like to always keep current on the people on the ground who are living. How do we coexist? We must. Let me first start there. We must. Without nature, without everything, even the mosquitoes. We're still trying to figure out, somebody tell me the great things of mosquitoes. But how do we coexist and why we coexist? It's in all of our best interest. Let me really, really pound this home. It is in all of our best interest, yours and mine, the animals, the mosquitoes, the bees, the donkeys, the whatever. The trees give us air, and we are all a cycle together. We can't be just one. We can't live on seawater. We need regular water, but there's so many animals that need the ocean. Remember that.
Thank you, Aminah. Appreciate that. When I told you what the topic of the show was for today, how animals build their shells, you mentioned it was going to be a very short discussion. So why don't we get that out of the way, and then we'll talk a little bit more about shells.
Right. Everybody needs protection. So we'll expand on this with the protection we all need. Ours is skin. Humans is skin. And it is vital to our survival that our skin behaves and covers us and protects us. The same with all other animals. You'll see birds. Yes, they have skin, but their feathers are absolutely essential to not only flight, but protection. All of their breeding, it's just everything, their feathers. And then you've got fur. You've got a bear. Why does he need fur? Well, he hibernates, or she hibernates, and needs that lovely blanket that comes in with it. And it has so many protections, so many cuddly things for their babies. All of this skin that comes off like a snake, that they shed it every year or every 6 months. Everything is different. You've got lizards, all of that. We all have skin. We all have coverage. And it is so vital to have that protection between the elements, between your day-to-day work, between trip and falling, whatever your modality is. Our coverage is essential. And taking care of that is where we start.
Excellent. I can really identify with what you're talking about there. I want to take us on a little walk on the beach, and we see shells. We might see all kinds of creatures. Maybe they're alive, maybe they've passed on. When we see a shell, we don't know if there's anything living in it. So what should we do for a shell collector, for example?
Ideally, we like to see people buying them in the stores, but there's the catch. That's not necessarily a great choice. And let me give you the power to make those really important decisions when you decide. If you go to a shell shop, and I lived near the ocean off and on throughout my life. So Morro Bay, if anybody's been in California, there's Morro Bay, there's the oceans all over around here, and then also back east, you'll see shell shops. What you want to ask the store first is, are these collected after the animal has vacated? So if they're collecting live shells and there's somebody living in it, then they killed that animal to sell you that shell. We don't have enough of that animals surviving because of not only global warming, but the poison we have created. We have so many gasoline and other types of petroleum and modality of getting boats and ships through the ocean. We are dumping our trash in the ocean. So to therefore then go after the shells that protect the animals that do live in the ocean, we're just adding another stolen resource. please go and look. You can walk the beaches in some areas, not all. I know the rules and laws change everywhere. So check with the ocean beach you're at. They'll have signs for sure that says, do not pick up shells. Do not do this. Do not bring blah, blah, blah. They will have regulations now on the beaches on what you can and cannot bring or do, or what you can't take home. There's a lot of places you cannot, like, oh, I'm just picking one flower. Well, but you don't know the 200 people that came up behind you just picked one flower. So there's nothing left for the honeybees to eat and pollinate and cross-pollinate, and there's no flowers for the next time. This is how we are where we are, because the soil dies because it didn't have a plant to feed and help change the soil when the flower died and the plant rejuvenated. It's a circle. We're all a circle. I really need you to hear that. We're all a circle. If we overtake what we need, which humanity is really great at, then we will continue taking away our future. That's the short part.
That's really profound. Thank you. Can you share with us which type of animals have shells?
Well, all your crustaceans considered shells, like lobster and crab. You're going to look at snails, of course. People eat those. So we're taking their habitat. I always say, get off my flowers. Stop eating them. You're going to get shells. You're going to get any of the centipedes they considered are have shells. Any of that coverage that they look like they're like little armored men running around with their own armor on, because you look at an armadillo, for example, hence the name. They have a great shell, not an insect, but they have a great shell to protect themselves from predators. Sadly, we don't have a shell to protect animals from people. We don't.
Whew.
You wish we did, right?
Absolutely.
Start making little iron little shirts for them made. Something. They're free, Bob.
Aminah, do the shells last for the lifetime of the creature that's living in it, or do they?
Not all of them. Most don't. I can't think of one off the top of my head at this very second, but most do not keep the same shell. They, like our hair, falls out all day long. You brush your hair, it falls out, and you're in the middle of regrowing your hair. So their skin is like our skin, and their shells are like our hair and our skin. It's going to continually rejuvenate. But if we have decimated their food source, poisoned it with gasoline, byproducts, trash in the ocean, whatever clever way we think of next, then we are making sure that their armor, let's use an armadillo as an example. They're considered armor on their bodies, but they're almost like little shell pieces, but bigger than your thumb. So if that nutrition you need, so let's say you need vitamin E, you need vitamin D, you need vitamin A, whichever thing this animal needs to be consuming to get those vitamins, and we kill off all the salmon, and they needed some kind of part of the oil that the salmon creates, and there's no salmon for them to eat, then they're not getting the nutrition they need. They're not getting the vitamins you need. We are a perfect example. So many of us are taking vitamins. So many of us are having our hair fall out, or our skin not as good as it was, let's say, when my parents were young and alive, and there weren't 5,000 choices of hairspray, or they didn't use it. They didn't even take vitamins very often, because what were they doing? They were eating natural food that had far less chemicals in it. The animals are going through the same thing. They're going through the same thing of too many preservatives, too many byproducts, too many things of, I don't think they make that in nature. If you don't know what it is and you don't know how it was made, you might want to think about not eating it or putting it on you. or having it. There's so many natural ways to put sunscreen on and or to have food and to make sure that you have good water. This is in the news all the time. And I know we all see it, where water is so primal in the conversation. You can't put a neighborhood there. Well, we don't have enough water. You can't put a blah, blah, whatever, new field there, whatever. We won't have enough water. Every time we build and we cut down trees and we don't replace them, then we are stopping the flow of tree, sun, leaves, water. All of this is a chain reaction in how much rain we get, how much soil is fed by the tree and the leaves dropping, etc. We need to realize that we are all part of one great plan, one great story. When you take it out and douse it with bleach, yeah, there's going to be a whole gap in the chain. And that's what we're trying to encourage everybody to say. Now that you know, choose something that you'll change. And one at a time. Do it easy. Do it so it's permanent.
Great tips, Aminah. Thank you. I wanted to share with you that several people who've been on this platform have been planting a tree in exchange for a client doing something. I think that's a great idea. What are your thoughts about it?
I love it, because what does that say? It says that we as a company are really invested in doing better, and we're going to encourage by the mighty buck speaks a lot, and all these processes takes time out of their workday, takes time in promoting them with their banners, as long as they're actually really doing this. And it's not just a promotion that they're hoping nobody asks them how well it went. And sometimes we have to fall down a couple times while we figure out the right remedy for our desires of coexisting or contributing. That is the way to go. Baby steps. If you are, you hate plants or you have the worst allergies on the planet, then maybe that's the last thing you do is maybe plant a tree, have somebody plant a tree for you somewhere. You can always sponsor. You can always sponsor these things. We are not all doers. Some are workers, some are activists, some are more passive. You can fit in your personality and your ability and your interest to support organizations that are doers. There's the whole line. I don't want you to ever get overwhelmed by anything we're talking about and saying, oh, well, gosh, I can't even do my life now. How am I going to change all this? Let me tell you how you change anything. One thing at a time. Figure it out, do it, find out how it works well for you, and be successful at it for a breadth of time where you feel more comfortable that it's no longer a new thing. Let's say you have to learn to write with your left hand, and you've always been right-handed. Your whole life you've been right-handed. That doesn't happen overnight. This is the same thing. If you're changing the way you're thinking, and the change in the way you buy your groceries, the change in the way you buy your car, all of this takes time. I want you to give yourself enough time. Now, I'm not talking about years and years and years. That's just maybe going too slow. I'm talking about be kind to yourself and saying, I got this. I'm putting one step in front of myself on this platform every day, however small that is. I just want you to know every action you take, every Kleenex you pick up. I am notorious for picking up trash when I walk around. My kids are always like, why do you always do that? I said, because it doesn't need to be here and I can pick it up and carry it home and wash my hands then, or carry a bag with me. I want to know that I made the place I was, because I've been there. I'm sure, Jacalyn, you've been there. We've all been there, where all of a sudden you have a bag full of stuff and off one piece of paper, one napkin runs away so fast with the wind. You're like, I'm never going to catch that. And I used to beat myself up for it. But we're human and we are not fast enough sometimes for the weather. Be kind to yourself. Just keep making those forward steps. Just keep making those forward steps and be kind with yourself and say, I'm going to get this. I'm going to figure out what works for me. That's all we're asking everybody to do, is participate in whatever way you can.
Get involved. Do something today. Be a
Yes.
part of it. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's that simple. Pick up a gum wrapper on the ground. If it's that small, pick up whatever. The only thing I stop at for myself personally, and I don't know about you, is cigarette butts. Those have been in somebody's mouth. I don't carry gloves with me usually. Those are the ones, and really, they're the worst because they don't biodegrade. Your wrapper, if it's made out of paper that was on your hamburger or something like that, or an envelope, yeah, it's paper. It's probably going to biodegrade in 10 years or whatever, but it might get there. But when we look at chemical made things like cigarettes are, and people traditionally, would put them on the ground and stamp them out, and hopefully most communities, I don't know about over where you are, Dr. Jacalyn, but here in California, it is not done. It is so frowned upon. And I believe, I haven't looked down at this in the last couple of years, there's a fine if you put your cigarette out on the ground. We rarely see them here. It happens, but it's not the 70s. It's not like that. I don't know if you saw this in the 70s, but I did as a kid. I was like, what, how is this not trash? And in those days, that was just, oh, that's what we do. We smoke, so we just put it out. And who picks it up? And that's where I want people to start to think. If it's not you, who? It can't be, well, it's not my problem. Guess what? The world is all our problems. And we can make a difference even if somebody else caused it. We can start to make a difference by just saying to your friend, hey, that's not cool. Pick up your cigarette butt. You might lose a friend. Maybe that's better for all of you. I don't know. But think about your choices and the people you're with's choices if that becomes an issue, because we're at ground zero now because we didn't do anything when we started talking about it in the late 70s and the 80s. We've had this conversation before. Now we know we're at ground zero.
There's so many things that you mentioned that just really resonate with me. And what's really coming through is that having excuses of why you can't be part of the solution is passé. That's old news.
It was 15, 20 years ago that everybody had an excuse. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, that's gross. I don't know. Pick something. It's not me. I can't tell you how many times I hear it. It's not me. Why do I have to do it? I'm just like, do you live here?
You see what's going on?
I'm enabling them.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, we'll deal with them later. Let's just go with, but you could. And I've been stopped many times when I picked up a cigarette butt specifically. And they said, that's gross. And I said, I'm going to wash my hands. The water is right there. And when you're out camping and hiking and you don't have the running water, guess what we do? How do we wash our hands? If I found dirt, trash in a campground, walking around in the forest, I would pick it up. There is no way in God's green earth I'm not going to pick it up. Drives my kids absolutely nuts. But because they say, oh, that's gross. So where am I going to wash my hands? I'm going to take some soil, put it between my hands until I get to a place with soap and water. That is doable. That is semi-preventable. Is it the best? No. But it's better than me walking around and then going, you itch your face or you pick your nose or you cough or something. And then you've got these dirty hands. Well, don't do that.
Yeah, camping is a discussion that I can't really relate to, but I know a lot of people really love it. It's good to get to nature. I did have an interaction with an animal last weekend, and I was thinking about you. I was going to mention it. So I got something to eat at a local place. I had walked 4 miles and I was going to walk 4 miles back. And I sat in this area under an umbrella outside of the the store, and
Mhm.
this big black crow was up
Ooh,
on the telephone wire, and it kept looking down at me, and it zoomed in, I guess, to try to get my food.
right.
And it kept doing it. Like, it would come close and then it would go back. So I just stood there still. I hid my food, but
Good.
it wouldn't leave me alone. So I finally had to leave. So I wasn't sure if that was a message or maybe it's been fed before by people.
There you go. It's been fed before by people. It sees us, and crows are incredibly smart. They're the ones that can do a problem and solve it. And the science behind it has been done with crows so long. They're very smart. They know what eateries do, and people drop food and they're waiting, and people will feed them. So he's checking you out, see if you're going to be one of those feeders. I call suckers because they're manipulating you. Oh, he's so cute, but maybe oh, he's so hungry. No, 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 nuts, cheese, worms. If you got those, that's great. They're eating crap. The food that we eat is not necessarily organic or great for a bird. So yes, you did the right thing by ignoring him, and he was doing everything to make sure you knew he was there. And starving to death? No, he wasn't starving to death. And all our food, especially, let's say you had cheese or mayonnaise or dressing on a sandwich, whatever, and you think the bread's fine. I can't tell you how many people I've been sitting with. They said, but it's just bread with dressing, mayonnaise, cheese. Birds are lactose intolerant, dear. I just have to share just the reality of it is like, no, you can kill him by loving him with your food. And you're also, what I really want people to walk away from is also, you are mucking up the chain of nature. This bird is supposed to be out managing the worms. So they have enough to tool the soil and enough to do what the worms need to do, but not too many to overrun, not to have too many bugs, no too many flies. I don't know you, I'm not a fan of flies and mosquitoes. Well, let the birds alone. That's what they do, is manage these populations that without them eating them, they run amok. They literally do. So every time you feed a wild animal, you are taking the place of the natural chain of events. And yes, it might be sad to see them see I don't know, a lamb that is, if you ever had a wild one, and a baby, and they ate it. But if they caught it and the parents weren't able to protect it, then there was something wrong with the baby, or they had so many that they couldn't care for them and protect them enough. There is a plan, everybody. There is a plan. Just because we don't know what it is doesn't mean it's wrong or it's slow or it's cruel. People die every day. We mourn them. We're sad. Losing my parents, it was terrible. But I knew it would happen. They were in their 60s and 70s and 80s by then. And your pets will go or come as their lifespan is supposed to be. So I'm not saying put anybody in danger, but think about wildlife as a hands-off experience. Please. I can't express that enough. Not feeding them. Water is great. Why is water different? Because it's essential to live. And so many of our houses have created a whole different landscape, that rivers and streams aren't flowing. So a bird bath is not the same as bird seeds, because the seeds would come from flowers and plants. The water is going to come from rain and or your hose. So water is great. I'm all for leaving sources of water, especially if you live in a place that is dry, arid, is going through a lot of drought issues. That's really, really, really great. Just remember, if you do like a bird bath, you need to keep it clean, because it can create mold and all kinds of other things if you're not keeping it clean. But how wonderful would it be to have a watering station if you lived in a rural area and you knew there were loose dogs that somebody is not caring for, And at least you had clean water for the wildlife and or any pet that became a stray before they were picked up by hopefully an organization that picks up strays. But you've got all this dry area now with global warming. Having a jug of water out for any animal would be absolutely the most important thing you do over food. Because you and I know, we've hiked, we've marched, you and I have done all this kind of stuff in our own lives. What do we carry with us? Water bottles. Every time we go, we carry water bottles. I know for my girls and I, we have them in the car. I have 2 sitting here in front of my computer. Water is essential to all of us. And you cannot overgive water. Unless you drown the animal, but don't do that. But you can't overgive water. But you can poison the water.
So what I'm taking away from what you're saying is when it comes to wildlife, look but don't touch. Don't provide any type of food. But if you want to put out some water, that would be great.
And shelter. Bird houses are great. The wood ones, they're beautiful. And the bird will decide if they're going to bring 1,000,000 twigs and make a little nest. That's great. That's great. Coexistence can be, I can provide clean water. You don't need to be a food source. Water is everywhere. They're not going to just look at you and say, oh, the only guy who has water. Unless we're in the middle of the desert and that you are the only water. That will save lives. But your contact with the animal is remote. They see that there's water at that location more than they see that person is the water, because you're not standing there holding the water. Where food is usually created, an animal's killed and or cereal or bird seed or whatever, then they associate that because of, like say you have a bird feeder and you put the seeds in it. Well, they associate that. Well, this place, that person keeps coming out and they see you fill it up. They see that it's not a plant. They get it, that it's you, not a flower that they're going for. So what I'm asking is put in the flower instead. Put in water instead. And bird baths and fountains are stunning. You can get every size, every color, really decorate your yard up and have something that, again, chemical free. I'm not telling you get the fancy pumply thing and then put bleach in it. No, that's not what we're talking about. Just really something that everybody, especially if you live rural, or for example, here, I have talked about, I live on this big giant hill and we have people that come out and dump animals. So even if you haven't seen the stray, a lot of people put bowls of water out on their patio or someplace where the animals would walk by and they can see it. So now domestic animals are different, and that's what I'm talking about. We've had people come up here and dump dogs or cats. So again, water is essential. Water is essential.
And I just want to have you clarify something when we talk about shelter, because I know from working with you for over 2 years now, you're not saying to bring wildlife into your home.
Nope. First of all, in almost every state that I am aware of, it is illegal. If you find an injured animal, you need to reach out to Fish and Wildlife if you're in the United States, or whatever your animal organization is. There are a boatload of rules, and that is because they don't want people just saying, hey, that's a cute bird, let's take it home and put it in a cage. Most of the time, a wild bird brought in will just die. It's too traumatic, it's very stressful, and they have no control over their existence, much less their food and habitat. So never, ever, ever take anything from the wild that is healthy and capable. If you are rescuing something from the wild, a bird or whatever is in your area, I'm not talking about dogs and cats and domestic pets. Like you find a hamster, that's probably not from your area, but you need to get a hold of your organization like Fish and Wildlife here in the United States and talk to them and say, this is what's happened. This is what I've got. What do you recommend? 99% of the time, they will come and pick up wildlife. They will come and pick them up, determine if they are surviving a bull enough that they would take them to the vet and or get them treatment, all of those executive decisions, but they won't be yours, neither will the bill. So we can love our animals all we want, but I want you to love them by doing the right thing by them. If you find you're overwhelmed with your new adoption, go to a trainer. Find somebody who, like me, can walk you through steps of do this, whatever their behavior or why you maybe picked the wrong pet. But at some point, you also have to have on the table, is it time to rehouse? Is it the right pet for me and my life? Talk to people like us. Talk to trainers, talk to animal people, talk to any coach. And you know this, Dr. Jacalyn, with your amazing business and all the people you've coached, and say, yeah, no, don't do that, because they're either 6 steps too far ahead, or they're not realizing that's going to cost $20,000, not $2,000. They dropped it at zero somewhere in there. And, or it's just not viable of a step. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you steps and say, these are what you should, and this is what you can, and this is what you absolutely should not. And then you make your choices. I know for me, I like giving clients a lot of choices. I don't live in their house. I don't live through their examples, but sometimes rehousing is the answer. Sometimes it's just training the person.
It's just like if you have an opportunity to evaluate whether or not the situation's working for you and for your pet, or maybe be better for someone else,
right,
and your pet to rehouse. So that's another great point that you brought up today. So,
yeah.
So far we've talked about shells, how shells are made, the type of animals that have shells. And if we see shells, no pun intended, whether or not we should pick them up, where we should actually purchase shells. And we also talked about coexistence. We talked about feeding wild animals and why that's not a good idea. We talked about watering animals, leaving water out. And we talked about being part of the solution as opposed to putting your hand up and saying, it's not my problem, I'm going to leave it for the next person or the next generation. What are some of the other things that you want to leave our audience with today as we talk about these important subjects?
That they're not as heavy as they seem. Yes, we're talking life and death, but let's put that aside in just the conversation and say, okay, I know that in the back of my mind, I know where this is all going. Great. I want you to in the reality check. But what I'd like you to do through all your life, why I'm so blessed to work with animals, is to live in the positivity, live in the baby steps, live in your choices. So I'm going to go out and buy a water bottle. Let's see if I can get it in the camera. Yay, there. A water bottle that's PVA free, has no chemicals in it. Looks like every other water bottle you'd ever buy anywhere. But the choice was, I don't really want to be drinking water out of this all day long, and then I'm also consuming all those chemicals. There are those little things. It would be the same thing as your doctor saying, oh, you got to cut out salt. And you go, oh, but I love salt. Salt's great. Well, it's killing you. So you come off things little by little. I can't imagine that if you had an addiction to gum, alcohol, cheese, whatever it is, that it would be really hard to just say, tomorrow I'm going to quit it all. And maybe you're great and you could do that. That's wonderful. Most of us, it'd be, I'm going to have 2 pieces today and I'm a 1 piece tomorrow, or in a week. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, that you cannot beat yourself up for what you didn't know. Now that you know, share it with your friends and family, and you can do it silently. I post things on my social media that I hope everybody sees, but I don't tag anybody. I'm not trying to target anybody, because I truly believe that the right person at the right time is going to see it and going to find it. Maybe it's a shared thing. whatever. But I still have to put the information out. I get asked all the time by other, coaches and people that are, I can get your numbers up and I can get your viewing up. I'm not about that. I'm about the right person finding this information, not everybody finding the information. So remember, be kind to yourself. Take your time to make a permanent change, as opposed to Tuesday, I didn't do that. But Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was too tired, so I did. I want you to try something different and give kindness to yourself to get it wrong a couple of times before you go, nope, I got this. And for me personally, it's knowing the why and how I'm affecting others, the world, the animals I dearly love. Find what motivates you to be more successful and go with it.
Go for it. I love it. Pet Psychic Aminah, we have your contact information here, but please let people know, how would you like them to reach out to you? And now that you've expanded, obviously, with our new name for the show, expanded the offerings that you have for people, let people know how and when and where they can find you.
Well, I'm on Pacific Standard Time, but that doesn't matter. The internet is 24/7, and that's why I use it. bridgingworlds.us. bridgingworlds.us. Everything, my Facebook link, my LinkedIn link, and all my other information is all of these shows from you are on YouTube, and that link is on my website. Everything is there. I wanted one stop so you could zoom around and see what I've done. And we have great articles. Dr. Jacalyn and I have been doing this over a year, and a lot of great shows, and her other shows also, that you can get so much good information. For me, it's on bridgingworlds.us.
All right, there you have it. Thank you so much, Aminah, and thank you to everyone who's watching or listening on the live or the replay. Hopefully you're noticing our new thumbnails over on our channel. We've got an expert in-house who is working on all of them, and we also have more new shows coming. I think we have 3 new shows that are coming, so we'll be up to 40 shows. Wow. And we just hit over 91,000 views for the last 28 days. So we really do thank each and every one of you for watching, for commenting, for subscribing. Thank you very much. We wish you a beautiful weekend, and we will be back here live streaming on Monday, and Aminah and I will be back on Friday. So do take care. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye, Aminah.
Bye.
Bye.